Hi everyone, very good afternoon to all of you. How are you guys doing today? A lot of messages on the chat box as well. Some of you are discussing about 2021, 2022. Abhishek, good afternoon. How are you? Vishaka, Nani, very good afternoon to all of you. Sazia, hi. Okay, so today, of course, we're meeting for a small session on some important constitutional offices in India and what are the kinds of questions that you get in terms of the various constitutional offices. That's what I want to discuss. Let's jump right into it. First things first, in terms of the various important offices in India like President, uh, Prime Minister, Judge of Supreme Court, Cabinet Minister, Governors, etc., there are basically four kinds of things that you guys have to know and you have to understand. So what are the four things? The popular areas from which questions are usually asked is basically what is the eligibility for each of these offices. Like, so for example, if you want to become a member of Lok Sabha, then the eligibility is the age of 25. And of course, you have to be a citizen of India and there are other factors. Like, for example, there is a different age eligibility to become a member of Rajya Sabha, which is 30. And there is a different eligibility to become the President of India, which is the age of 35. Right? So what is the eligibility for each of these offices? Is there an election and so on? Who votes in those elections and so on? That's basically the appointment procedure, right? So how does one get to become Prime Minister of India? So Nani has a question. Sir, who appointed the Rajya Sabha chairman? So the Rajya Sabha chairman is not elected separately. It is basically the Vice President of India, currently Venkaiah Naidu, who is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Ex officio chairman meaning by virtue of his office, by virtue of the fact, because of the fact that the person is a Rajya Sabha, is a Vice President of India, that person by default becomes the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. The deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha is of course elected by a majority of Rajya Sabha MPs from amongst their own members. Right? So you have to already be a Rajya Sabha MP and then you can become deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. But the vice president is not even a member of the Rajya Sabha. Of course, the vice president does get to vote in case of a tie in the Rajya Sabha. So the vice president can cast a what is known as a casting vote, right, to break the tie if he is the if he or she is the presiding officer and the chairman for that particular session. Otherwise, it is the deputy chairman who also can cast the casting vote if he or she is presiding over the session of the Rajya Sabha, right? So eligibility of the offices is something you have to know. Appointment procedure, particularly say for offices like the President of India, particularly for judges of Supreme Court, is a lot of discussion because we have had so many recent issues also about how can you become Chief Justice of India or who becomes Judge of Supreme Court. What about transfer? Justice Muralidhar recently was there was a huge issue about his transfer from Delhi to the Punjab and Haryana High Court. Justice Ranjan Gogoi was a former Chief Justice of India and he was nominated as a member of the Rajya Sabha. And also we've had the National Judicial Appointment Commission. So there are quite a few issues about appointment of judges as well. What is the tenure and what is the removal process? So tenure, of course, is the normal duration of office. So for a Lok Sabha MP, the normal tenure would be 5 years. For a Rajya Sabha MP, for example, the normal tenure would be 6 years. And more importantly, what is the removal process has been quite a bit of discussion because of some removal motions that were introduced for Justice Deepak Mishra when he was Chief Justice of India, for example. For example, similarly, there have been removal motions introduced against Justice Soumitra Sen from the Calcutta High Court. Then there are disqualifications for even MLAs and MPs, like for instance, if you are convicted of a particular crime, like Lalu Prasad Yadav, for instance, cannot contest in the upcoming Bihar elections. The assembly elections are just around the corner in Bihar, right? So, but he won't be able to contest. His party can still contest, of course, but he cannot contest in the elections because he was convicted by the CBI, Special CBI Court, in the fodder scam and so on. So, or Jayalalitha was the sitting chief minister of Tamil Nadu, and she's passed away now. But when she was the sitting chief minister, again there was a lot of issues in terms of whether she can contest and whether, how does she get disqualified, and so on. And so, impeachment motion of the president has been a very, very popular question in the CLAT exam. In fact, for those of you who have looked at the sample papers that were issued by the CLAT consortium, the first sample paper that they gave for CLAT 2020 had a whole passage in the GK section about the impeachment of Donald Trump, right? Which was, of course, a GK question, but in that passage, in one of the GK questions, there was a passage about what is the article which speaks about, in the Indian Constitution, which speaks about the removal or impeachment of the President of India. So, and again, those are the kind of questions that you usually get. 4 things: eligibility, appointment procedure, tenure, and what exactly is the removal procedure. So let's jump into it. Let's look at some of the important constitutional offices in India. All of you, of course, know that there is a President of India, and he is the head of the state. President of India is indirectly elected, which is why India is ultimately a republic, right? That's why all of you celebrate Republic Day. No, it's a national holiday in India. So Republic Day is on 26th of January, because that is the day on which 26th January 1950 is the date on which India became a republic, because that is the date the Constitution of India came into effect, right? And therefore, because the Constitution came into effect, we of course started having a President of India, and the President is indirectly elected. So what is the, first of all, what is the eligibility for each of these offices? Basically, you should have an idea about those 4 things: eligibility, procedure of appointment, tenure, and removal process, right? So what's the eligibility to become president? Now there are some key eligibilities which are common to almost all important offices in India. Like, for instance, to become President of India, or Vice President, or Prime Minister, or Chief Minister, or each of these offices, MP, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, MLA, MLC, no matter what you want to become, you obviously must be a citizen of India, right? Of course, we cannot allow Pakistani citizens or Australian citizens or Myanmar, Rohingya refugees to start becoming Prime Minister or President of India. You must have attained a certain age. Right now, so of course, for Prime Minister and for President, the eligibility age is different, because for Prime Minister, you must be eligible to become a member of Lok Sabha, and the eligibility for Lok Sabha is the age of 25. Whereas for the President of India, of course, it has to be the age of 35, right? So there are some differences in terms of age, but there is a minimum age requirement for all the offices in India, for all these offices at least in India. Similarly, you must not be of unsound mind, right? Insane person, pagal, okay? Pagal insan ko, we are not going to make that person Prime Minister, President, or an MP, or an MLA, and so on. You must not be a convicted criminal, right? So now, every time when there is an election that happens, I'm sure a lot of you keep reading in the newspaper, right? That, because the media enjoys this kind of crap, where they'll tell you that 40% of the BJP or 60% of the Congress are accused, the people who have gotten the tickets from these parties, they are accused of serious offenses. Now the problem is, of course, if somebody is simply an accused in a criminal case, that does not mean that the person is guilty. That only means that somebody can simply go and register an FIR and you will become an accused, right? So the disqualification is not for accused. The disqualification, and personally I believe that makes sense. Otherwise, people will simply start registering FIRs against each other, and that will be enough to disqualify a candidate, right? So we're not doing that. What we're saying is if the court has found somebody to be guilty, right? If the court has found somebody to be guilty, then of course, ultimately you will be disqualified, right? And if you are serving a jail sentence. So earlier it was a position that even if you are serving a jail sentence, you can still contest an election. If people are supporting you, then you should be eligible to contest and so on. But we don't follow that philosophy anymore. Now what is the position is, if you are a convicted criminal currently serving a jail sentence, then of course you cannot contest any election, right? Okay, so that's the eligibility. Now how do you become President of India? What is the appointment procedure for the President of India? What is the appointment procedure? I'm assuming a lot of you already have an idea. Basically the way to become President of India is there is an indirect election. Indirect election through the Electoral College, right? Now, who all are part of the Electoral College and who are voting in the presidential election? So, common man does not vote in the presidential election, right? The common man, like you and me, has voted for certain people, right? So, you have elected your MLAs. Those MLAs have elected members of Rajya Sabha. You have elected the Lok Sabha MPs directly yourself, right? And these three people, these three categories of people, elected members of Lok Sabha, elected members of Rajya Sabha, and elected members of the various state legislative assemblies. These are the three entities which basically are part of the Electoral College, and they are the ones who vote in a presidential election. That's why Indian presidential election is not a direct election like the United States, where Trump and Joe Biden are going to go head to head, where the people are directly going to vote for the president right now, right? Trump is the Republican nominee and Joe Biden is the Democratic Party nominee. But in India we have indirectly, because we will elect MPs and MLAs, and these MPs and MLAs will then elect the President of India. The tenure of the president is of course 5 years. MLC, no. Jashan, members of the state legislative councils do not vote in presidential election. MLAs, Rajya Sabha MPs, and elected members of the Lok Sabha, those are the only ones who vote in the Electoral College. Jai Jagannath. Okay, how do you become Vice President of India? What is the tenure? Is 5 years, and removal is by way of impeachment. Impeachment for president. Who will do the impeachment? Impeachment will be done in the parliament. So as far as removal of the president is concerned, you don't need the MLAs. MLAs will elect the president, but as far as removal is concerned, MLAs have no role to play of the state legislative assemblies. The removal ultimately is done by the members of parliament alone, right? Okay, just look at the chat box for a quick second. How many union territories in India? I'm not going to answer that question. Please check. Please check. We have 3 new union territories. I mean, 2 have been combined also, and Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, which were earlier part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, have become 2 new union territories. Sir, who has more power, IPS or MLA? Ruman, it really, I don't know how to answer that question, because it really depends. I mean, it is an MLA who can become chief minister also, and obviously the chief minister or a cabinet minister, etc., even by protocol, or if you become for example, the speaker of the legislative assembly, even by order of precedence, they are obviously above even the DGP of the state, right? And obviously every IPS officer is not DGP. Somebody is an SP, somebody is an DIG, SSP, Assistant Commissioner of Police if there is a commissionerate, and so on and so forth. Vice President can be removed by the Rajya Sabha. First, the motion has to be introduced in the Rajya Sabha, right? Okay, Navneet has a question. Please explain impeachment. So it's not impeachment, it's impeachment. 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 So basically you need a certain minimum number of members to introduce the motion in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. then once the motion is introduced, then the president will get a 14-day period within which to show cause. He can address, he will have to have a right to address the house, both houses, whatever it is, to explain why he should not be or she should not be impeached or removed, right? But anyway, irrespective of whatever is the opinion of the parliament, if ultimately voting happens and more than by special majority, if the impeachment motion is passed, 2/3 majority, then of course the president will stand removed from his office, right? So similarly for vice president again is elected by members of parliament. MLAs don't have any role to play in the vice presidential election by and large, but again vice president's removal motion can be introduced first of all in the Rajya Sabha. So that's the important difference. Okay, let's come to prime minister, otherwise we'll not get through the first slide only. Let's just try to fast forward this process. How do you become prime minister of India? And everybody knows who is the prime minister, but do you know how does one become prime minister of India? I'll give you guys 20-30 seconds. Why don't you think, answer, tell me. I'm looking at the chat right now. MLC has any educational qualification? MLC, normally there is no requirement, but there are certain graduate MLC elections also that happen. Like in Uttar Pradesh, the graduate MLC election is just going to happen over the next few months. Lucknow graduate MLC is going to be elected. So where you need to become a graduate and only then can you contest in that election. And only graduates will be eligible to vote also in that election. But otherwise, for an MLC or an MLA, you don't need a particular educational degree. Okay. How do you become president? How do you become Prime Minister of India? Who appoints the Prime Minister? So, because if you, for example, the Narendra Damodar Das Modi is the current Prime Minister of India, but of course he contested the MP election from Banaras. But when the people of Varanasi were voting for Narendra Modi, whoever voted in favor of him, that is, they were obviously not voting for him as Prime Minister, right? Because their voting is limited to appointment or electing a member of parliament to the Lok Sabha, right? So as far as Prime Minister is concerned, again, Prime Minister is also not a direct election, right? Members of parliament, so members of parliament or members of Lok Sabha or both houses, which one? Who will appoint Prime Minister? Navneet is saying he or she should stand from any constituency. That is not true. You don't have to be a member of parliament to become Prime Minister. You can become Prime Minister and then you will be given a 6-month period within which you can become either a member of Lok Sabha or you can become a member of Rajya Sabha also. So you don't have to be an MP on the day on which you become Prime Minister. Right? So Prime Minister of India is basically appointed by a majority of Lok Sabha MPs. Right? So Rajya Sabha MPs have no role to play in terms of the appointment of the Prime Minister. Similarly, that's why before Speaker or Cabinet Minister of Central Government, I have written about Chief Minister, because Prime Minister and Chief Minister, the appointment procedure, etc. is very similar to each other. So Prime Minister can be any person as long as you fulfill the minimum eligibility, right? That you are above the age of 25, you are a citizen of India. I mean, pretty much everything else is common. You should not be insane, you should not be a convicted criminal, and all of those things. Once you're done with all of those, majority of Lok Sabha will appoint Prime Minister. Similarly, majority of Vidhan Sabha will appoint the Chief Minister, right? So again, even to become Chief Minister of a particular state, you don't have to be a member of Legislative Assembly or a member of the Legislative Council, Vidhan Sabha or Vidhan Parishad. You don't have to be a member. Just like Prime Minister is given 6 months to become a member of Parliament of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, similarly Chief Minister is also given 6 months if he or she is not um, not already a member of either house, then you can become an MLA or an MLC within 6 months. So in the state of Uttar Pradesh, for example, we have currently one chief minister. I stay in Lucknow, so that's why a couple of extra examples from Uttar Pradesh. But so the chief minister is Ajay Singh Bisht, right? More popularly, all of you know him, of course, as Yogi Adityanath. And we have two deputy chief ministers as well, right? And Keshav Prasad Maurya and Dinesh Sharma. So now, none of these three members had contested MLA election or MLC election. Two of them, of course, were sitting members of the Lok Sabha, right? Yogi Adityanath, as a lot of you know, was a member of parliament from Gorakhpur. Dinesh Sharma was the mayor of Lucknow. Now, chief minister, two deputy chief ministers, all of them basically had to become a member of either Vidhan Sabha or Vidhan Parishad within 6 months of becoming chief minister and deputy chief ministers respectively of the state, right? So all three of them, of course, currently are members of the Vidhan Parishad, of the legislative council of the state of Uttar Pradesh. So therefore, what you can also understand is cabinet ministers, whether of the central government or cabinet ministers of the state government, both of them again are appointed by prime minister and chief minister, right? So house elects PM, PM then appoints the cabinet. Similarly, the legislative assembly elects chief minister and chief minister then appoints the state cabinet. But because I've given you the example of two deputy chief ministers right now, you therefore understand that because deputy CMs are basically cabinet minister rank, so basically whether central government cabinet or it is state government cabinet, again cabinet ministers also will get a 6-month period. If they are not members of the house, they can become members of the house within 6 months of them becoming a cabinet minister, right? I hope till now everything is clear. I'll just take a quick look at the chat box. Inter-friendly chat happening amongst each other. Not much that I need to kind of the majority of some of you have answered. Very good, very good. Okay, Nani has a question. Vice President dies, who will, there'll be election. There'll be election again. Lucknow, Nawabon ka shahar, and you love Lucknow. Yes, very good. Khushi, even I love Banaras. Varanasi is one hell of a city. It's a lovely, lovely city. Okay, let's come to the Speaker of Lok Sabha. Right, so Speaker of Lok Sabha again is appointed, and Speaker of Vidhan Sabha similarly will be appointed by majority of the House. So to become Speaker of Lok Sabha, for example, you should already be a member of Lok Sabha, right? So this is a main difference between Prime Minister and Speaker, right? Or Chief Minister and Speaker of Vidhan Sabha, because Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Cabinet Minister, even if you are not a member of the respective house, you can still become Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Cabinet Minister, and within 6 months you have to become member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. But to become Speaker of Lok Sabha, you should already be a member of Lok Sabha. That's the only difference. Otherwise, the process is same, that Prime Minister is also appointed by majority of Lok Sabha MPs. Similarly, Speaker of Lok Sabha is also appointed by majority of Lok Sabha MPs. Similarly, Speaker of Vidhan Sabha is appointed by majority of the MLAs of that particular Vidhan Sabha, but again from amongst their own members, right? From amongst their own members, unlike Chief Minister, who can also be an MLC and who may not be an MLA or MLC at the time when he or she became the Chief Minister, right? Okay. Then we have MPs. We're just coming to MP and MLA election. Are there any other questions? Please tell about Speaker. So I think I'm just done with that. So can we stand for MLA in case of being an IPS, I mean, after you become an MLA, you will have to, of course, resign as an IPS officer. I mean, because you cannot, it's an office of profit, right? So because you're drawing salary from the government, so you cannot hold two government offices at the same time. So you can either choose to be an MLA or an MP or whatever, or you can choose to continue with your other government job. That is the Indian Police Service job that you have. Who votes for the MLC election? The respective MLAs, right? All the states don't have MLCs in the first place. Every state does not have a Vidhan Parishad, but wherever there is, it is the state's MLAs who basically vote for the MLC election, right? Okay, MP, Lok Sabha and MLA have a very similar appointment procedure, right? Why is it that how is it that you become a member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly? That is done through direct election, right? Direct election. So direct election means what? In India, what we have is, and I hope some of you are taking down notes as well, right? Direct election basically in India means that there is a first past the post system. First past the post. What it means is, like in a running race, you don't have to beat someone with a particular margin, right? All you have to do is, as long as you are first, you win, right? So similarly, if there are 10 people contesting for an MP Lok Sabha or an MLA election, as long as you have secured the highest number of votes, right? As long as you have secured the highest number of votes, you win the election. So out of a group of 100 people who are eligible to vote in the elections, let's say only 60 people decide to show up for the election. And out of those 60 also, you got only 15 votes, right? So 100 eligible votes, 60 people voted, you got only 15 votes. But if everybody else got 14 and below, then basically you still become the member of parliament or the member of legislative assembly, right? So and a lot of you will be eligible to vote in the next election, right? And so it's a very popular misconception. I think I just don't understand what is this lack of education problem, or is it a half education problem? But a lot of your friends also will tell you, oh, I don't want to go vote because everybody is corrupt, everybody is a thief. No, if you think everybody is a thief and that is what is important to you, then don't be dumb. Figure out who is the least corrupt and go vote for that person. Because if you don't vote, anyway, whoever gets the highest number of votes will be representing you, and will be representing your family, and will be representing your friends, right? So it might as well go and vote. No, similarly, there are another next level of, I think, foolishness, where people go and, in my personal opinion, I'm not to disgrace anyone, but a lot of people go and press nota, none of the above. It's as good as staying at home. Because if you go press nota, you have basically again wasted your vote. Because whoever gets the highest number of votes is again going to win the election. So if out of 100 people, 100 people also go vote, 90 people vote nota, out of the remaining 10 votes, if I get 5 votes or 6 votes, I'll anyway win the election, right? So if you are actually feeling that you are educated, if you're actually feeling that you would have done a better job in the Vidhan Sabha or in the Lok Sabha and you'll be able to run the government better, and that's a very popular educated people arrogance that exists, I know for a fact, then I think the real best way to channelize your education and to show that you are educated is go research, find out who you think is the least corrupt, go vote for that person, convince 5 of your friends, try to create a ripple effect. The entire middle class usually doesn't vote. That's why the government also doesn't really care, about us. We are not paying for their election campaigns. We are not voting in the elections. The poor people vote at least. The rich people pay. No, so the government usually cares about the rich and the poor, but the government usually doesn't care about the middle class because we only sit on Facebook and complain. So get off Facebook, go to the election booths, participate in the great dance of democracy. It's the world's largest democracy, right? So definitely go do that, right? Okay. So I hope everybody's at least understood MP and MLA election and how the whole concept works, right? Okay, let me take a quick look at if there are any questions that I've missed. Is there any qualification to vote for MLC? No, MLAs are eligible to vote. That's it. So you should be an MLA. That's it. Okay, Ruman has a question, sir. Why is such a law made of office of profit? Why can't we choose two offices? It makes sense, no, Ruman, that because if you are part of the executive, like if I am, let's say, SP of Lucknow, and I am a member of Parliament from Lucknow, how would I be able to? I am part of the law making body of India, right? I can use my position as a member of Parliament to make a law which will benefit my governmental position because there'll be a conflict of interest, right? So of course the SP should report to the member of parliament because the law making body itself, the laws that an IPS officer is supposed to apply, the laws that an IAS officer is supposed to apply, I am part of that body which will decide what should be the law of India, what should be the law in the state of Uttar Pradesh, for instance. So now, of course, if I am making the law, then there should be somebody else that is reporting to me and is uh, ensuring that the execution of the law, etc., is happening in the right way. Sir, in Andhra Pradesh, graduate is eligible to vote for MLC. That is only for graduate MLC elections, Nani. That's what I told you. That's happening in Lucknow also just now. I mean, over the next couple of months, in UP also there is that election happening. But most MLCs are elected by MLAs. Some MLCs, which is known as the graduate MLC election, is separately which happens not just in Andhra Pradesh, but in most places where there is a Vidhan Parishad. Okay. Okay, that's just a decent introduction to all the important political offices in India. Let's move on to the next bit, which is a lot of these important judicial offices in India, right? And legal offices in India. So judges of High Court, Supreme Court, Chief Justice of India, all of them are basically appointed through the collegium system, right? So what is the collegium system? Collegium system is basically the 5 senior most judges. So for Supreme Court, the collegium would be Chief Justice of India plus 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court. And these 5 people basically will recommend who should become a judge of the Supreme Court to the central government. Then the central government will make the recommendations to the President of India, and ultimately, of course, President will make the final appointment. Navneet, I saw your question. Sir, in Bihar, elections are on the way for MLA. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's I think everybody by and large knows it. No. For encounter order, it should be given by CM, or can IPS take his own decision? For encounter, I mean, it doesn't have to be an IPS officer also. If there is a reasonable threat to life, etc., whoever is the police officer can take the decision. I mean, there's already gunshots being fired. In the middle of all of that, how do you call the chief minister and take permission? You have to understand, when does an encounter happen? Encounter is not like you go decide that I'm going to kill this person. That's murder. There is a difference between murder and encounter. Encounter is when there are criminals who are also countering you. Therefore, you will also respond by use of force because you are facing a use of force, right? So while facing bullets and people attacking you with swords, of course, you don't have the time to take approval from anyone, right? So it is, of course, the police which will decide the case. Sir, example for Hathras and Nirbhaya. In Hathras and Nirbhaya, where is the question of encounter? In neither of these cases, encounter happened, right? Both of them were rape and murder accusations. In Nirbhaya case, it is already decided because the court has also found people guilty of both rape and murder. The Hathras case is still being investigated. The superintendent of police, the SP, and the investigating officer both have already been suspended by the state government, and the investigation has already been handed over to the Central Bureau of Investigation. Assuming there is a problem and people have not lost faith on the state investigating authority, so the SP and the investigating officer of Hathras and the Hathras case have already been suspended. Can you justify what happened in UP? I don't know what exactly happened in UP. That's the As a lawyer and as a law student, um, I mean, I would obviously have to wait for what the investigating. I was not there at Hathras. I have completely given up on. I have completely given up on deciding on the basis of Supreme Court of National Media. I would rather follow what the Supreme Court of India says, right? So between like a couple of journalists and the CBI, I would certainly have more faith on the CBI or on the Supreme Court SIT or things like that. Who appointed judges to the Supreme Court? I think I already discussed that. No, sir, you're not getting my point. I'm like, can police encounter the rapists by taking their own decisions? I think you're not understanding what encounter means, Ruman, and for anybody else who has that confusion, encounter does not mean that the police is deciding that we will kill people A, B, and C, right? Encounter means that if people who are accused or somebody else is using force against me, against the police, then the police also has a right to respond with a use of force, right? So the decision to commit murder is not encounter. That is neither the police nor the chief minister nor the prime minister. Nobody can take that decision. The decision to give death penalty is only with the courts in India. It is only the judicial establishment which can give death penalty, right? So it's not so police cannot decide to kill. That I think that's not the issue, right? Okay. Okay, now what are these other legal offices in India? Attorney General, Solicitor General, Additional Solicitor Generals, and so on. So Attorney General of India is basically the highest legal office in India, right? So it's basically the senior most legal officer who basically represents the government of India, right? Similarly, Solicitor General of India is also appointed by the central government. Attorney General is appointed by the central government. Additional Solicitor Generals of India are also appointed by the central government. The parallel position in the state is the Advocate General, right? So Attorney General is somebody who must be eligible to become a Supreme Court judge. Advocate General is somebody who is eligible to become High Court judge, right? And Advocate General and Additional Advocate Generals are of course appointed by the state government, right? Okay, what am I missing? So what about Priyanka Reddy case? I'm assuming you're talking about the Hyderabad Priyanka Reddy case. So what about the Priyanka Reddy case? It was an encounter. Again, what is the police's position? The police said we went early morning to recreate the scene at the scene of the crime. There the accused tried to escape and snatched guns. There was physical conflict, and in which two police officers were also injured. And in the course of that encounter, where other people were using force, the police was forced to use force, and then the police therefore in the course of using force shot these people. So where is the question of Hyderabad police, for example? Where is the question of Hyderabad police committing something which is illegal? How are you deciding that it is illegal? Again, you're just assuming that none of this happened and every single police officer and IPS officers, investigating officer, everybody is lying. And we should just assume that these people who were brave enough to puncture a woman's tire, stay drunk, then rape a woman, then burn the body, would not have any intention or no reason to attack police officers. That is hard to believe, but it is easier to believe that police officers intentionally just killed people. I don't know which story is more feasible, but it's not about stories. It's about that fact that we have a criminal justice system in India. And in the course of the criminal justice system, it is not for the media or for Debajyoti Das or for you to unilaterally decide what is right and wrong, right? If you believe something is going wrong, the appropriate remedy is to go to court. So same thing if UP government is killing in encounters. So again, government does not do encounters. Encounter is in case of crossfire and so on. So if you're talking about the Vikas Dubey situation, Navneet, so again, the police has of course come up with their explanation as to what happened. It is for you to believe or not to believe, but the criminal justice system and the purity, the purity of the criminal justice system is not going to be randomly diluted based on media's opinion or based on my opinion or your opinion, right? So let's have faith that that highly trained police officers and IPS officers who worked with, have been trained at the Sardar Vallabhbhai Academy in Hyderabad itself, are probably going to win in an encounter, right? Yeah, Pranjal, I think I've just answered about Vikas Dubey also. So again, Vikas Dubey also, the situation is same, that he tried to escape, he snatched the gun, and therefore, by the way, Vikas Dubey had already murdered 8 police officers. He had already done it, right? So, I mean, is it too hard to believe that he tried to kill more police officers? Or is it probably reasonable to believe that he's already killed 8 police officers? Maybe the police is not lying and they would have higher apprehension because this person has already committed the murder of 8 policemen. So they would have every additional right to react in a certain way, thinking that there is a higher amount of threat, right? Without the permission of the Nani, again, I think you're missing the entire legal issue. Without permission of High Court judge or CM of Telangana, why commissioner encounter? First of all, commissioner has not ordered the encounter. Encounters are not ordered. I cannot explain this any further. It is an evolving situational reaction. Somebody is trying to shoot me, therefore I am shooting. That's it. How will I take permission from High Court? Who told you that you need permission from High Court to do an encounter? It is permission cannot be granted for encounter. How will permission be granted? How does the High Court already know that this person is going to snatch your gun or try to shoot? No, so it's not, that's not what an encounter means. He got killed because he had information. So excellent, Navneet, then you should apply to become Chief Justice of India because clearly you know more than the High Court judges and everybody else. I think again that's the whole point I'm trying to make, Navneet, that it is let us not become Chief Justices of India ourselves, no? Let the courts decide, or at least until we become Chief Justice or Judges of Supreme Court, let's hold on passing judgments, no? That will be, I think humility also demands that we don't act like Judges of Supreme Court. Okay, why was he murdered? He was here because he had information. Media said something. I don't know what to believe. You're free to, of course, believe and have an opinion on the point. Sir, are the free classes enough for 2021? The entirely free classes in itself may not be, because even now I'm obviously able to discuss only to a certain extent, right? Okay, anyway, most of these officers, of course, are appointed naturally by the central government, right? Cabinet Secretary of India is the senior most senior most bureaucratic office in India. The Chief Election Commissioner, Comptroller and Auditor General, Chairman of UPSC, these are not directly sort of bureaucratic offices, these are constitutional offices. Usually an IAS officer is appointed as the CEC or the CAG. Currently, mostly Chairman of UPSC also is usually an IAS officer. But in fact, right now is a very unique situation where the Chairman of the Union Public Service Commission is in fact not an IAS officer but a professor in a university. The Chief of Defence Staff is a recently created office, right? Currently it is held by the General Bipin Rawat, who is basically the joint commander of the Indian Army, the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force, right? And what are the highest ranks of the Air Force, Navy, and the Army itself? General is a 4-star rank. Admiral is the chief of the Indian Navy, and Air Chief Marshal is the chief of the Indian Air Force. And I've just separately mentioned the elite special forces or the elitist special forces of each of these wings of our armed forces. So the Army Special Force is the para commando. So all of you must have seen Uri, the movie. So it is the para SF, para special forces, parachute regiment or para commandos, which basically headed and led the surgical strike in case of Uri. Similarly, the Marcos or the Marine Commandos are the elitist and the deadliest special force in India, but it is part of the Indian Navy. And the elitist special force in the Air Force is the Garud Commandos, right? So you can just remember it easily, like Parcos, Marcos, and Garcos, right? So Para Commandos, Marine Commandos, and Garud Commandos. And just one last point I wanted to make is there have been 3 officers in the history of our armed forces, how I said is it's armed forces, right? This should be a D. There have been 3 officers in the history of Republic of India who have been given a 5-star rank. So during service, nobody gets a 5-star rank. It's an honorary rank, right? So the first person to get a 5-star rank was General Sam Manekshaw of the Indian Army, and he got it in 1973. He got the rank of Field Marshal, right? Sam Bahadur or Sam Bahadur Manekshaw. 3rd January 1973 is when he had gotten a Field Marshal rank. The other person is General Cariappa, who also became a Field Marshal and had become Field Marshal on 28th of April 1986. And the last and the only person from the Indian Air Force to have been conferred a 5-star rank, which is, what is the 5-star rank? It is the Marshal of the Indian Air Force, was Air Chief Marshal, former Air Chief Marshal Arjan Singh, who was conferred the 5-star rank recently in January 2006 on Republic Day in 2002. Republic Day 2002 is when he became the Marshal of the Indian Air Force, right? So that's as much as we could discuss today. I hope you guys learned a bit enough. There's of course more details, but we've run out of time for today. But I will be taking up more details. I hope some of you will be joining us in the Gradeup Super program, where we can look at each of these positions in a little more detail, and so many other things in constitutional law which we keep on doing. I hope you've taken a look at some interesting results that we've had. In fact, today evening I'm catching up with Shamik Datta for an interview, for an interaction, try to figure out how he prepared, because I prepared a long time back, right? I did get an All India rank 20 in NLS Bangalore, but it's been quite a few years. So how was CLAT 2020? What should be the current approach, and so on? Let's hear it from somebody who's done it. So today 5 p.m. of course we're only doing the recording, so the video should be up very soon, by tomorrow or day after. So do keep a track of that as well, and do join us for some of the courses. I'm sure all of you already know about and have met most of the expert faculty members here. I mean, I don't consider myself an expert, but I do think Surajit, Shantanu, Prashant, who's also from a national law school, as well as Savitri ma'am, Pranav, Naveen, Ashutosh sir, everybody does a very good job of taking and addressing your doubts and coursework and so on. So that's pretty much it. I hope all of you also are already aware of the YouTube schedule that we have for those of you who are attending the free sessions. So we're going to do a few more free sessions, and we're pretty much meeting on weekdays at 2 p.m. So I hope to see some of you continuing at least in the free sessions, and I hope to continue some of these interesting conversations that I've been having, right? Thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely day ahead of you. Bye bye.